And the latest images coming in of Prime Minister Modi at the urgently called Cabinet Committee on Security meeting. He's joined by all senior leaders right now. The subject of this meeting is directly and focused on the Ukraine crisis right now. The Ukrainian ambassador had earlier today appealed to Prime Minister Modi to get on the phone with Putin. The Indian Prime Minister will be phoning Putin very shortly, we are told. We'll, of course, have details of that conversation after it takes place. But these are images from the Prime Minister's office where he's meeting with the Defense Minister, the Home Minister, the External Affairs Minister, the Finance Minister, the military chiefs, the intelligence chiefs. All of them are there right now with the President at this cabinet meeting that's focused on the unfolding crisis in Ukraine. And now I want to bring you the 10 defining images. In case you missed them, it's important that you see these images because this is a crisis that does involve us all in one way or the other. Image number 1. Troops and tanks from an armored unit crossing allegedly into Ukrainian territory. Now the Russians say no such thing has happened. The Ukrainians say this is an image of the Russian invasion. Tanks marching into Kharkiv in northern Ukraine. The Ukraine border guard reported multiple casualties due to Russian shelling not very far from these areas. Remember, these are Ukraine published images from official channels. Now let's go to the second defining image today. 2 massive explosions were heard in the rebel-held territory of Donetsk in the east as Russian forces began their military offensive in the morning on Ukrainian territory. Russian missiles can also be seen landing in some of these images. Some of the most dramatic early images of the military offensive. Third image coming to you right now of this, and this is perhaps the most dramatic image that has been captured on camera today of a missile hitting a building in Ivano-Frankivsk city of Ukraine. Somehow on a mobile phone, someone was able to capture this missile or a laser-guided bomb of some kind landing on a building facility in a big ball of flame. A huge burst of flame can be seen as this munition hits the area. The damage done is not known, but this image has become the most defining visual of today's conflict and the Russian offensive on Ukraine. Let's go to image number 4 now. In the eastern port city of Mariupol, the airport has been ablaze after an early morning bombing. Explosions were also reported very close by. You can see the airport's primary radar dish, fully destroyed. A fire and plume of smoke there. India Today, only channel to report from the Donetsk region, has been reporting from just a few kilometers away from where this bombing took place. In fact, if you watched our coverage, you could hear the shells and the bombs actually landing. Civilians, image number 5. Civilians in absolute fear and terror. First, listen to this woman. Civilians crying and being evacuated from Mariupol, the second largest city of the Donetsk province, where Russian forces have attacked and explosions were heard. Panic, tears, anguish, emotions among civilians in Ukraine at this time. I want you to listen in once again to this.
Куда, сын, на работе я одна, куда мне бежать? Куди ховатися? Куди? Скажіть, будь ласка. Ой, Боже мой, Боже мой.
Heart-rending images coming in from Ukraine. Image number 6, defining image number 6. Please look at this enormous traffic jam in Kiev. The roads of the capital of Ukraine all day today filled with an unending column of cars as locals desperately try to go from one place to the other, get out of the capital. Videos of Ukrainians fleeing the capital while air raid sirens were ringing have gone viral on social media. The true face of citizen emergency, trying to get out of a place that is under attack. Image number 7, Ukraine's central bank has temporarily suspended the country's currency market and limited the withdrawal of cash. And therefore, all through today, you've seen long lines at ATMs with people desperate to withdraw cash. Long queues have been seen outside ATMs and bank branches in different cities. So wherever you go in Ukraine, this is the sight outside ATMs right now. Let's show you image number 8 now. And again, one of the most viral images today that you saw first here on India Today, released by Ukrainian MP Maria Lovona, who put them out first here on India Today. Ukrainian border guards say Russian troops have entered a northern part of the capital region. They claim that Russians have attacked the Hostomel airport in Kiev via helicopter, at least 6 helicopters. Ukraine claims, however, that 2 of these helicopters you see on your screen have also been shot down. Image number 9 in our list of defining images today. Burning trucks and heavy property damage witnessed in Mariupol city, where India Today has been reporting from. This is in eastern Ukraine, as Russian forces have been resorting to heavy shelling. Lots of fire, lots of damage, lots of shrapnel, a great amount of damage to property, vehicles and road infrastructure and houses and buildings witnessed in the city. All of it captured on India Today's cameras. And finally, Kiev's airbase, the airbase called the Antonov Airport just north of Kiev, being attacked by Russian airborne assault force. This is a fleet of helicopters headed towards that suburban airbase just north of Kiev. We are told by our sources that the helicopters were carrying Russian troops to take over that airbase so that they can use that airbase for air power application in Ukraine. So very, very defining images. That is image number 10 of the Kiev Holometsev airbase just north of Kiev, being taken over by Russian helicopters. And now you've seen those 10 defining images of the conflict. It was a morning that every citizen dreads, and it truly is the world's nightmare that's come to life. For Ukrainians, this is a living reality now, and there's perhaps no going back from it in the near future. Russia is at its eastern border, shelling, and Ukrainians are in absolute war panic. Here's a full overview of what happened today.
The dawn of Thursday in Kiev was not a promising one. In the capital city of Ukraine, people woke up to the sounds of sirens. Nearly 850 kilometers away from the capital city in Luhansk, near the line of control in eastern Ukraine, long queues outside banks was the commonplace scenario this Thursday morning. The same was the case in Mariupol, in Donetsk region.
We have to leave our houses. What is going on?
Куди ховатися? Куди? Скажіть, будь ласка. Ой, Боже мой, Боже.
Ukraine is under martial law.
Martial law? There will be panic. Where would I hide the children? There are no shelters. There are nothing. It's an open space. Where will I go?
I'm alone at work. Where will I run?
More than 10 hours drive away from Mariupol in Kiev, there were long lines of traffic on the road.
A lot of military actually going here in the street. This is like the local defense unit and a lot of police and also National Guard. This is the metro station, central metro station, Kashatik station, which was supposed to be used as a bomb shelter, but no need to use it for now.
Despite repeated calls by the Indian government, some Indian students are still stuck in Ukraine in the middle of this conflict.
As you can see, we are standing in the queue from last 1 hour, maybe more. For the groceries. Yes. Already so much. We are even can't find the bread or something. That is keeping the food and water for 2 or 3 days, because our neighbors also said keep the food, water, everything ready. Maybe there will be blackout in the night.
Close to 500 kilometers from the capital city, smoke was seen over Kharkiv city and sounds of explosions were reported, much like what happened before dawn in Kiev. Instagram users shared videos of shelling in Ukraine on Thursday after Russian troops launched their anticipated attack. It's a war in Ukraine.
And I want to get a quick live update from the ground in Ukraine. India Today's Rajesh Pawar joins us live from the city of Mariupol. He's been residing there, reporting from there all day today. A day of history as far as Ukraine is concerned. War is upon the country. Rajesh, what's the current situation? We last spoke a couple of hours ago. How have things changed? We've seen, very dramatic images from Kiev and elsewhere. What's happening in Mariupol and what are you hearing from your network, Rajesh?
There were a few explosions about an hour back, about 4 of them again, but they seemed more like artillery shells firing, maybe from Ukrainian side or from Russian side. It's difficult to say. Besides that, in the town, it's total quiet. Hardly any people on the streets. It's all empty. If you can see behind me, I'm in the center of the city right now. Not many people around. Only people you see in the city are outside the ATMs, trying to withdraw money from the banks, where the banks have placed a limit how much you can withdraw from there. Besides this, right now, it looks all quiet. Shiv.
Safe, my friend. I worry about you. I hope you're going to be okay. If you're hearing explosions, you know what to do. I don't need to give you advice. You've been there in these conflict situations before as well. We'll connect with you in the next couple of hours. Stay safe, Rajesh. We'll keep coming back to you. Now that this entire situation has become armed conflict between Russia and Ukraine, many people are wondering, can Ukraine fight back? Experts say that NATO and the West have hung Ukraine out to dry. But can Ukraine actually fight back if it needs to push back against Russia? What do the two militaries actually look like if you compare them? Now, the obvious disclaimer is such comparisons don't give you the full picture because it's not always just about the bean count and a number-to-number comparison. Nevertheless, it's useful to see where those numbers actually stand. Look at Russia's troop figures. Over 3 million standing troops. Ukraine has about 1.1 million. As far as fighter aircraft, Russia overwhelmingly more numbers, over 1,500 fighter jets, 67 in the Ukrainian Air Force. Attack helicopters, very useful, especially in such situations. Russia has over 530, Ukraine has just about 34. Battle tanks, and we've seen many in certain videos that have been doing the rounds today. Russia has a huge armored fleet, 13,000 main battle tanks. Ukraine has just a little less than 2,500, so small number there. Armored vehicles, armored personnel carriers, infantry vehicles. Russia has an enormous 27,000. Ukraine has less than half at just about 11,435. Towed artillery, and remember, shells have been landing. Russia has nearly 4,500. Ukraine has a little over 2,000. Not bad, but still not anywhere close to what the Russian forces are. And remember, we're talking about the Russian forces in the area as well. Warships, Russia has a much larger number, 214 of them. Ukraine has just 13. So all aspects of this conflict, when you compare, Russia is a behemoth. It's an overwhelmingly larger force. So if it's pitting only Ukraine against Russia, there is absolutely no comparison when it comes to the application of conventional force. Western powers are getting ready to impose sanctions on Russia. EU ambassadors met in Brussels and are said to have arrived at a consensus on what those sanctions are going to be like. The British Prime Minister said the UK will respond with a massive package of sanctions. The US President, who had already imposed sanctions 2 days ago, promised further severe sanctions on Russia. All of this because of Russia's unilateral aggression against its neighbor Ukraine. A little before 5 a.m. on Thursday, Russia's missiles began to strike Ukrainian targets, setting off another war, this time in Europe.
Ukraine is under attack. Russia from across the border launched airstrikes at targets within Ukraine, signaling the start of war.
The Russian president declared a war on the record. Should I play the video of your president? Ambassador, shall I do that right now, or you can't confirm it? Do not interrupt me, please. Thank you.
Then don't ask me questions when you are speaking. Proceed with your statement.
Anyway, you declare the war. It is the responsibility of this body to stop the war.
And as with the beginning of any battle, there has been confusion and misinformation riding the airwaves, distorting the understanding of the situation. What could be confirmed early in the day are the 6 initial targets that Russian arms has hit in Ukraine. Military headquarters near the capital Kyiv got hit by cruise and ballistic missiles. In the attack launched simultaneously across the country, Russian missiles hit 3 major Ukrainian cities in the east: Kramatorsk, close to the rebel-held region of Luhansk; Kharkiv, near the Russian border; and Dnipro, which in 1943, then known as Dnieper, had seen one of the biggest and bloodiest battles of the Second World War. To the south of Ukraine, there have been reports of the international airport at Kherson having suffered damage. Aside from this, unconfirmed Ukrainian sources claimed that Russian troops have been spotted in the city of Odessa, which is close to the border with Transnistria, that is itself a Russian-backed breakaway region of neighboring Moldova. Ukraine is Europe's second biggest country by landmass, and its attacker, Russia, is the biggest. Besides its border with Russia, Ukraine has 6 other neighbors, but with Belarus to the north firmly on the Russian side, and with Crimea, which used to be part of Ukraine, invaded and annexed by Russia in 2014, the country now faces hostile borders on 3 sides, stretching across the north, to the east, to the south. The point of conflict in 2022 has been along the line of contact, a temporary border that demarcates Ukraine from the 2 regions that separated from it in 2014, aided and abetted by Russia. Luhansk and Donetsk have been in a state of constant friction with Ukrainian forces, and the breakaway regions claim more than double the area that they currently control as separate from the national identity of Ukraine. Yet the actual bone of contention in this war that has just broken out remains a matter of influence. Moscow cannot allow Ukraine joining the NATO, and it has proved that Russia will go to war if necessary to prevent that from happening. Since the breakup of the Soviet Union in 1991, the US-influenced North Atlantic Treaty Organization, or NATO, has been constantly expanding eastwards. It added 11 countries that were part of the Soviet Eastern Bloc, buffer states of the USSR. The 3 Baltic states of Latvia, Lithuania, and Estonia, once a part of the Soviet Union, joined NATO in 2004. With Russia feeling encircled by NATO, the move to let Ukraine in would mean that NATO would for the first time include what used to be a major Soviet republic, and it would take possible NATO deployments dangerously close to Russia.
Regarding using the armed forces abroad, well, of course, we signed the treaties yesterday. And in these treaties with both Donetsk People's Republic and Luhansk People's Republic, there are articles saying about us providing those republics help, including military help. As long as there is an ongoing conflict, by this decision, we are making it clear that if necessary, we intend to stand by our obligations.
The Russian President Vladimir Putin on February 21st, in a televised address, warned that if Ukraine were to join NATO, it would serve as a direct threat to the security of Russia. He described Ukraine as a springboard for a NATO strike against Russia. And that is something that the President of Russia, Vladimir Putin, will not let happen, even if that means going to war with Ukraine.
Taking you straight across now to Gaurav Sawant, who is live with us from Mariupol, the first and only Indian journalist, and I don't say this lightly, the only Indian journalist viewer who has been reporting from the Donetsk region of Ukraine. which has been under attack all day today. Gaurav is with me from the city of Mariupol. Gaurav, what is the current situation? Things have escalated dramatically, minute on minute, hour on hour, right through the day today. What is the current situation? We had a word with Rajesh a couple of minutes ago. He says that there is a dramatically more tension now. Explosions have been heard. Take us through what you're seeing, Gaurav.
Shiv, there has been a dramatic escalation. In fact, multi-barrel rocket launchers, or what appear to be, quick succession volleys being fired, have been heard in this area. Number of convoys that have gone towards the border, they have increased. Shelling has increased. The sounds have increased, and panic has increased manifold. And we've been speaking to a number of people who now say that they want to leave Mariupol. Their apprehension is the way the Russian forces are moving in. And in this age of information warfare, a lot of information is not just coming through television, but it's coming through social media, it's coming through blogs and vlogs, and all of this seems to indicate that the Russian forces are moving as part of a very organized agenda. They have a war plan, and they're executing it to perfection in terms of taking crucial airfields, some very close to Kiev, attacking from the sea, the targeting of Odessa, attacking from the north, attacking very crucial places here in Mariupol, including the airfield. All of this indicates that they're moving as per plan and rather systematically. What are defenses like? We are still waiting for more information to filter in. Of course, the Ukrainian forces have said that they've shot down at least 7 Russian aircraft and helicopters. But the fact that image that you saw, you broke first here on India Today, of those 7 Russian helicopters flying very low towards the airfield in Kiev, are an indication that if utility helicopters, if transport helicopters are flying so low, that too in the heart of Kiev, it's an indication that air supremacy has either already been established, or they're very close to establishing complete air superiority in this region, that the helicopters can come in not flanked either by attack helicopters or by fighter jets. So that is an indication which way things seem to be heading. Of course, early days yet in this conflict.
Just to update you, and you were of course aware of this, the Prime Minister of India is going to be dialing his counterpart in Russia, the Russian president, in just a few minutes from now. We'll have an update on that. But Gaurav, apart from the attacks that we're seeing take place, it's clear that the Russian playbook also involves, destroying air bases and facilities of Ukraine. That is very key to the whole quote-unquote demilitarization process. And on day one itself, Russia has clearly struck and tried to either destroy or take over certain air bases.
Shiv, SEAD is a very classic tactics of war, suppression of enemy air defenses, and Russia seems to have achieved it. And the manner in which they have achieved their target of almost little or no resistance. Of course, we still wait for confirmation on that 8 aircraft and Hepters going down. But the fact remains that if Russian helicopters are flying in, that the Mariupol airfield that was targeted early in the morning. You saw images of that radar in flames, that mangled remains of the radar here at Mariupol, the damage that was caused to multiple other airfields. So the systematic targeting of airfields, the destruction of a very crucial ammunition dump, which is seen as one of the most central ammunition dumps here in Ukraine, that has been targeted. Again, an indication how long can the adversary then sustain the battle if one of their main ammunition dumps has gone up in flames. That's point 2. Point 3, targeting of very crucial cities, almost as choke points. Is that then a precursor of ground troops moving in? And we still haven't seen, of course, the images from Kharkiv, which according to the Ukrainian information system or their media also seems to indicate some losses that the Russians have suffered in terms of their armored personal carriers and troops being targeted by Ukrainian forces. This just goes on to show that it's a multi-pronged offensive. Kharkiv in the east, Mariupol where we are, the other flank of the east, the Donbas province, targeting of Kiev, targeting of Odessa from the south. So the Sea of Azov and the Black Sea, that is where the Russian flotilla moves in. So this is a multi-pronged strategy. While Ukraine perhaps was hoping for global intervention in terms of harsher sanctions.
Yes.
Despite whatever sanctions have been put in place or are likely to be put in place, Russia has sent their troops way into this, they've sent their weapons way in to target very crucial vital assets and vital points. Perhaps troops will follow in the days ahead.
Gaurav, stay safe, my friend. Thank you very much for being with me. I wish I was there with you, but you've done an amazing job. Stay safe. This story is very far from over. It's only just begun. We will continue to, stay with you and Rajesh, who are bringing us absolutely stellar coverage. You may not know this, Gaurav, but we've been the most viewed channel all through today, and that's the reason is you and Rajesh and Maria, who've been bringing us first-hand reports, unlike most other people who are depending on, second-hand sources. But with Russia invading Ukraine, uncertainty has clouded the futures and lives of millions and millions of citizens who are wondering what's going to actually happen next. With the invasion of Ukraine, uncertainty clouds the lives of Ukrainians, including 20,000 Indians, mostly students, residing in the country at this point of time. The Indian Embassy in Ukraine has issued a new advisory for nationals stuck in Ukraine. The Indian Air Force is also on standby to fly in and evacuate people if it is ordered to do so. Here's a report on how India is planning to bring back its nationals from Ukraine. And there are thousands who are still in that country that's just been attacked by Russia.
A nation under attack. Martial law enforced. Toyota, but we're looking for models. Military reserves called to duty. Civilians told to take up arms. As Ukraine puts a fight against invading Russia, uncertainty clouds millions of civilians in the country. They include roughly 20,000 Indian nationals, mostly students.
હવે બધા અમે અહીંયા ફસાઈ ગયા છે. બધા એરપોર્ટ બંધ થઈ ગયા. કીવ જે મેઇન ઇન્ટરનેશનલ એરપોર્ટ હતું ત્યાં રશિયન આર્મી આવી ગઈ છે. અમે ક્યાંય જઈ જ નહીં શકતા. હવે અમારા જોડે કોઈ રસ્તો નહીં. ઇન્ડિયન એમ્બેસી બી એમ કે વેટ કરો. અહીંયા મોલ બી બધા ખાલી થઈ રહ્યા. એટીએમમાં પૈસા બી બધા ખાલી થઈ રહ્યા. જો ઇલેક્ટ્રિસિટી ઇન્ટરનેટ ને બધું બંધ કરી દીધું તો અમે શું કરીશું? અમે બધા સ્ટક છીએ અહીંયા.
With Ukraine closing its airspace for civilian flights, the task of getting Indians out has got tougher. A special Air India flight, which was to bring back around 250 Indians, was on the way to Kiev when the Ukrainian airspace was closed. The flight returned to Delhi via Iranian airspace, dashing the hopes of parents waiting for their children to return.
We are in very critical condition as we are very eager what happens there in Ukraine and there to the students, including my son, Mahaganapati, and all students. Actually, the parents are panic regarding this and they are trying to come back to India, but flights are not available as the strength of the students. So that is the difficulty. If the war goes on like this, and the condition will become very terrible, I think.
The Indian Embassy in Ukraine has issued a fresh advisory for nationals stuck in that country. The embassy has said alternative arrangements are being made as a schedule of special flights stand cancelled. The embassy further added that it will release information as soon as new arrangements to evacuate are made. The mission has also urged Indians to carry passports and necessary documents with them at all times. In view of the prevailing situation in Ukraine, a control room is being set up in Delhi to provide information and assistance for Indian nationals.
वैसे सरकार ने पहले भी एडवाइजरी जारी की थी और साथ ही उनको बाहर निकालने की व्यवस्था सरकार ने कुछ की है. प्लेन्स वगैरह भेजे गए हैं, लेकिन वहाँ की ऐसी स्थिति है कि अब शायद जहाँ तक मुझे जानकारी है कि अभी प्लेन लैंड नहीं कर पा रहा है, लेकिन उसको लेकर सरकार चिंतित है. और जो भी एफर्ट संभव था हमारी सरकार ने किया है और आगे भी जो एफर्ट्स होंगे अपने भारतवासियों को बचाने के लिए हम लोग करेंगे.
Indian Air Force is also on standby for evacuation from Ukraine if airspace opens and government requires evacuation of Indian nationals. In an exclusive conversation with India Today, Indian Air Force officials said that they are ready to undertake any task which is assigned by the Government of India. With Geeta Mohan and Shiv Arur in Delhi, Bureau Report, India Today.
If you think this is only about the people of Ukraine who are suffering the most, then you're wrong. It is their suffering that is front and center, but the shockwaves and the ripple effect of this conflict, of this offensive by Russia, is being felt everywhere. It will impact you as well in some way or the other, whether you perceive it or not. The prices of gold, the dollar, crude oil have shot up. Stock markets across the world have plunged. This is a truth, I keep repeating, that involves us all. We cannot ignore it. Here's the impact across the world.
The declaration of war by Russia against Ukraine has sent global markets in a complete meltdown. Global stocks in US yields dipped. Gold, dollar, crude oil prices shot up. Back home in India, it's raining red in the markets. The Indian markets have gone down as investors seem to be weighing in Russian invasion in Ukraine. As of 9:54 a.m., the benchmark index in India, the Sensex, tanked 1,936 points, 3.38% down to 55,296 levels. The broader index Nifty tanked 572 points, almost 3.35% to 16,491 levels. At noon, the markets saw Nifty slip below the 16,600 mark, with the Sensex down almost 3% in the day's trading session. Finally, there was bloodshed in markets, with Sensex closing down 4.72% at 54,523 levels and Nifty closing down 4.78% at 16,248 levels. The price of crude jumped up $100 a barrel, touching the $104 per barrel mark for the first time since the year 2014. There's now stokes fear of an inflationary response in India, which is an oil importing nation. Not just that, it becomes a worrying situation for the US Fed Reserve and the central banks who have sought to contain strong price pressures. This would impact central banks globally to bring forth their tightening cycles and perhaps hike rates aggressively to contain the risk of inflation. This crisis may perhaps also lead to a larger scale invasion of Ukraine. Amidst this particular fear, there are chances of the USA and European nations getting involved militarily that will have negative consequences on the global economy. The growing concern has pushed the global markets into a corrective drive. A 20% decline from the Nasdaq peak seems to be an indication of fears of the Russia-Ukraine crisis deepening. Gold, flirting at 1,113 thereabout US dollars, seems to be another reflection of the ongoing crisis. Bitcoin, Ether, plummet. Bitcoin fell as much as 8.5% to 34,337 US dollars. Ether declined close to 12% to 2,301 thereabout dollars. XRP, Cardano, Solana slipped as well. Cryptocurrency too could not hold fort amidst the crisis, with reports suggesting prices plummeting further in the short term. In New Delhi, Chaiti Narula for India Today.
Now, as Russia launches this attack on Ukraine and continues to ratchet up the violence and the offensive, nations across the globe have condemned Moscow's action. Now, nations across the world, especially the Western countries, the NATO countries, have united to condemn the Russian invasion of Ukraine after explosions in many cities and this military offensive actually began. We've seen pictures all day today of the offensive near Kiev and in Kiev. Russian President Vladimir Putin, in a surprise television announcement, declared war early this morning India time, asking Ukrainian soldiers to lay down their weapons. Here's how the world has reacted. Many of these reactions may seem totally useless to you because these are voices that should have perhaps done something to preempt what happened today. Nevertheless, listen to them.
War has been declared. Ukraine has been invaded by Russia. It's been building up to this moment for months, and America's efforts, along with its allies to block Putin, have quite literally gone up in smoke. Russian President Putin shot off a stern message to the world while confirming his invasion plans.
I've taken the decision to conduct a special military operation. Its purpose is to protect people who have been subject to abuse and genocide by the Kiev regime for 8 years. And to do this, we will strive to demilitarize and denazify Ukraine, and also bring to justice those who have committed numerous bloody crimes against civilians, including citizens of the Russian Federation.
The White House immediately issued a statement condemning Russia's move, and Biden deeming it as unprovoked and unjustified. But for now, they've adopted a wait-and-watch policy, with Biden saying he will decide the next step with the allies.
Colleagues, a few moments ago, I spoke to President Biden, who asked me to convey in the strongest possible terms his and our steadfast support for Ukraine. The United States and our allies and partners will continue to respond to Russia's actions with unity, with clarity, and with conviction. We're here for one reason and one reason only: to ask Russia to stop, return to your borders, send your troops and your tanks and your planes back to their barracks and hangars.
Ukrainians speaking to India today appealed to the West and NATO to offer support. Not words, but military support to help them fight Russia.
Explosions are being heard in Kiev, but according to official data, these were explosions on a military storage around Kiev and approximately 100 kilometers from Kiev. We do not exactly what were the consequences of these explosions.
It is, however, a complete improbability that any country will offer military support, including the United States, which could consider diplomatic isolation or the strictest sanctions.
And I think it seems like they're evaluating their options. It also seems like everything is on the table, which means essentially all sanctions, full scale of sanctions on the table, which also includes SWIFT. But as far as I know, as far as I've been told by senior State Department officials over here in the US, it looks very highly unlikely that the US will put boots on the ground. I think they will continue to work with their allies. I mean, there's a G7 meeting that's going to be that President Biden is going to attend tomorrow. He's going to sort of spearhead that meeting tomorrow. And after that, I think we'll probably see more sanctions coming in tomorrow. I really do not think that there will be any sort of boots on the ground or a military engagement with the Ukraine forces.
Most countries are following the sanctions route against Russia.
We are facing an unprecedented act of aggression by the Russian leadership against a sovereign, independent country. Russia's target is not only Donbass. The target is not only Ukraine. The target is the stability in Europe and the whole of the international peace order. And we will hold President Putin accountable for that. Later today, we will present a package of massive and targeted sanctions to European leaders for approval. With this package, we will target strategic sectors of the Russian economy by blocking their access to technologies and markets that are key for Russia. We will weaken Russia's economic base and its capacity to modernize.
Australia, meanwhile, has announced visa priority for Ukrainians a day after extending sanctions on Russia. With Gaurav Sawant in Mariupol, Bureau Report, India Today.
Meanwhile, with Russia seeing some anti-war protests on its soil, the country has warned its citizens of legal consequences if they join any of these anti-war protests. Citizens have been warned in Russia strictly not to participate in any anti-war protests in Russia after Russian troops mounted a huge military offensive on neighboring Ukraine. The Russian government has threatened legal repercussions for joining unsanctioned protests. Demonstrations against Russia's offensive have broken out in different parts of Russia as well as the world. Protests against Putin were also held in Tokyo and Berlin. And India Today's coverage will continue right through the night. All the most dramatic images and updates after this very short break. We'll get you a big update. Prime Minister Modi has been speaking, is supposed to speak to President Putin as well. We'll have an update for you on that as well right after this short break. Stay with India Today's coverage.